So in the United Kingdom, you might have seen these protests that have been taking place in the last couple of days. Let me give you the background information about what's happening. Okay, so this started out with Sarah Everard. Okay, that's her picture. So she was murdered by a cop, okay, by someone who works in the Met. So when we say the Met, we mean the Metropolitan Police, basically the London police. So she was murdered by a cop, and this sparked huge outrage. Her body was just recently found, and the guy's been arrested and charged with her murder, not convicted yet, but it sparked huge outrage. And so people they went and they held a vigil for her. Okay, where was this in I think Clapham. So they went and they held a vigil for her. Okay. Yeah, Clapham Common. And the cops, the police, again, keep in mind, this is the exact same police force, the London Met. They started brutally arresting everyone. And it was, again, mostly women. So, I mean, just think of how insensitive, and again, that's kind of an understatement. Just think of how insensitive that is. Like one of you just murdered a woman on her way home when she's walking home, and now you're trying to you're trying to shut up other women that are just holding a vigil. I mean, it's really disgusting. Look at this, honestly. You would think that they're arresting violent criminals or something. I mean, how do you justify this? This is absurd. Yeah, so that was, I mean, it's insane because the London Met doesn't even want to apologize, right? They won't even apologize for it. And they're saying that it was justified. See, Met Police Commissioner Cressida Dick defended the police's widely criticized response to the vigil by saying that concerns over the spread of coronavirus amid the really big crowd led to officers to become involved. I think involved is not really the right term here. Yeah, the police's actions at the vigil prompted fury across the country and across the political spectrum in the run-up to the UK lawmakers voting to pass a controversial bill Tuesday that will expand policing powers. And now we get to the next part. Okay, so I mean, this is really this is not a joke. What's happening in the UK? So now what they're trying to do, they're trying to pass a policing and crime bill that, it's a bit of an omnibus, right? So it's got tons of legislation in it. It's a mammoth piece of legislation, and it has things, for example, like life sentences for killer drivers, except I'm sure Anna Sakoulis, the CIA spy who killed Harry Dunn, she won't be facing any jail time. And it has harsher sentences for a wide variety of crimes. However, if you go and you look under Clause 59, this is about what the police can do to protesters. And I'm not just talking about like a group of people protesting, even just one person. Okay? So let's take a look at that. Okay? Let's take a look at this bill. Here's just one headline from Insider. It says Boris Johnson to make protests that cause annoyance illegal with prison sentences of up to 10 years. Annoyance. That's what they're saying. Annoyance. So this is from the BBC. What powers do police have now? Right now, if the police want to place restrictions on a protest, they generally have to show it may result in serious public disorder, serious damage to property, or serious disruption to the life of the community. Okay? They can also impose specific measures on the routes of marches. When it comes to major events, such details are typically thrashed out with the organizers weeks in advance. So how will the bill change those powers? Police chiefs will be able to put more conditions on static protests. They will be able to impose a start and finish time. They will be able to set noise limits, and they will be able to apply these rules to a demonstration by just one person. So taken to an extreme, let's say there's an individual holding a protest placard while blasting out their views on a speaker. If they refuse to follow police directions over how they should conduct their protest, they could be fined up to £2,500. It will also become a crime to fail to follow restrictions the protesters ought to have known about, even if they had not received a direct order from an officer. I mean, this is unbelievable. And the proposed law includes an offense of intentionally or recklessly causing public nuisance. So give me a second. I had this. This is really interesting over here. Do you remember the statue that was toppled last year during the protests? Do you remember this? During the George Floyd protests, you had some Black Lives Matter protests then happening in the UK. And in Bristol, they toppled this statue of a slave trader. You remember that? And everyone in government was horrified. Oh my God. You're horrified that a statue of a slave trader was thrown into the dock? Why? Do you like slave traders? What is wrong with you? So they're also increasing the punishment for people who do shit like that, right? So I think they're taking it from 3 months to 10 years, right? They're taking it from 3 months to 10 years. So like if you topple a statue like that, even if it's a slave trader, you could go to jail for 10 years, up to 10 years, right? I mean, this is really, wow. This is great, right? The UK is such a democracy, right? I just love that. So if you look down here again, I told you about Clause 59, right? So Clause 59 would abolish the common law offense of public nuisance and replace it with a new statutory offense of intentionally or recklessly causing public nuisance. Now this phrase, what does that mean? A public nuisance? Like, how do you define that? How do you define a public nuisance? I mean, for a law, I feel like, especially a law that is so not just controversial, but it has a direct impact on people's right to assembly, right to express their views, right to protest in a supposed liberal democracy, right? Shouldn't you maybe define what that is? What is a public nuisance? Define that. And what does that mean with sound limits? Like, are they going to bring a decibel meter with them? They're going to tell you like, oh, nothing above 60 decibels. What is that? And notice something. This has nothing to do with the pandemic. There's no language in here about the pandemic. It's just nuisance. You're annoying. Well, who gets to define what annoying is? Isn't a protest supposed to be annoying so that people pay attention to the cause? I don't know. I thought I thought that's a given. So again, keep in mind, this has nothing to do with health concerns, like they're pretending, right? Because they're saying, oh, we had to break up the Sarah Everard vigil because of health concerns, because of the pandemic. And when I was in London, when I was covering the Assange hearing, I went to one of the vigils for Assange, which was at Piccadilly Circus, right? And Piccadilly Circus, you're in central London. You're minutes away from Soho, right? So I mean, there were tons of people that were violating the rules, and they were only picking on the Assange activists. Isn't that weird? I'm not exaggerating. They literally followed us like to fucking Soho. There was a cop. Hold on. Do you remember this picture? I was filming them. There were so many cops. Like there were 30, 40 cops. For what? 40 fucking cops. What are you doing? Do you remember this? Look at that. This dude was standing like a few meters away from me with a fucking camera, just filming everyone. What is that? Why are you doing that? Look, People just standing around with signs that say free Assange, and they're filming everyone. And you know what they were doing? The cops were coming up and they're saying shit like, oh, well, you know, you guys, you can't do this because, you know, you need to inform us beforehand. And they're trying to find out like who organized it. And people trying to explain to them like no one organized it. It's just people come for the vigil, right? And they're like, no, you have to go home. You can't, you have to go home, and we're going to follow you. We're going to follow you to make sure that you go home. And if you come back, we're going to find you. But again, my point here is that there's a double standard because we're in central London. There's people like literally like meters away that are also gathered together, and they didn't care. They left them alone, and they were following the Assange protesters. They were following us to the next district. Who does that, right? So this is not the only issue because it's okay. Just before I move on to the other issues, speaking of Bristol, that slave trader statue in Bristol that was thrown into the dock, which caused such outrage. Oh no! Speaking of Bristol, they had a huge. Well, the media is calling it a riot, right? So people have been protesting because they've been saying, kill the bill. We need to kill this bill that is going to limit people's right to protest. And again, it has nothing to do with pandemic. There's not about that. They're just saying you're annoying. We're going to fine you for being annoying. I mean, what is that? So this is what happened in Bristol, right? They're saying that this from the BBC, police attacked as, quote, kill the bill demo turns violent. Yeah. I love how they reserve the violence condemnation for people who are, you know, fighting for their democratic rights, but not for the police, right? Who murdered a woman and then tried to shut down a vigil full of women who were just peacefully standing there, gathered together to, you know, to mourn. That's not violent. Really. Wow. So they're saying, oh, protesters have attacked police after, and you know, they're making it out to be like the French Revolution. But to be fair, they did do a little Parisienne, right? So in Paris, quand il y a des émeutes, on brûle des bagnoles, c'est comme ça. So I think they burned 2 police cars, right? And I mean, they're just trying to make it out to be like, oh, this is just violent people. Like, no. These are people who actually care about the legislation that is being passed, and they hate it, and they're rightfully concerned. And you, if you were doing your fucking duty as journalists, you would also be concerned about that shit instead of trying to paint them as them being violent. No, I think the police are being violent, and that's not an understatement, right? Excuse me, that's not an overstatement. Because look, you know, again, this is not about COVID. This is about muzzling people who protest, and they're even doing it for one fucking person. You saw that. It says even one person. One person. And they're saying if you don't comply, you're going to be fined. And it's not just this. It's not the policing and God, I forget the title of the bill. Policing, sentencing, and crimes bill, right? So it's not just about this. You guys remember what we covered. We covered the spy cops bill, right? The CHIS bill, the covert human intelligence sources bill. So what does this bill do? It lets police, not just police actually, it lets any undercover agent, even from, you know, it doesn't have to be the police only. It could be from gambling, health, and any kind of undercover work for the government. It lets them commit criminal acts. And I'm not exaggerating that. It literally says it's a criminal authorization for undercover agents to just do whatever they like. And it's unbelievable because this legislation, it went through the House of Commons, which is like the British equivalent of the House, right? So what happened with Labour, there's no opposition, right? Keir Starmer was like, no, none of you are going to vote against the bill. You just abstain. But I mean, it's the same thing as just voting yes, right? You're just letting it through. So they let the fucking bill through, knowing that with this bill, okay, with the CHIS bill, a cop or anyone who's working in an undercover capacity, could be also for MI5, they can rape someone, they can torture someone, they can kill someone and do it with impunity. And so I think I have to issue one small correction, though. I think I do have to issue a correction because I had previously thought that Keir Starmer had just let it go straight away. I think they tried to put a motion, they tried to put forward a motion to get that out, but it was voted against. In any case, my point is it goes to the House of Lords, which is like the Senate, okay? I'm really trying to simplify it here, but it goes to the House of Lords, and they put in 2 amendments, right? I think Chuck Robarty tried to get in a third one, but they put in 2 amendments saying that, we're not going to let police or undercover agents commit rape and kill people under this bill. We can't have that. So they removed that and they sent it back to the Commons, right? And what do? They vote against the fucking amendment. So they basically put back murder and rape and all these crimes back into the bill. And it fucking passed. And it received royal assent. So that's a law now in the United Kingdom. This shit over here is a fucking law. This is legislation, right? So I mean, the language in it is unbelievable. I mean, if you look at, just let me show you something over here. Yeah, look. So they're saying here that they have some safeguards for juveniles, right? But I mean, who says that these risk assessments are going to be appropriate, right? They're saying that if someone is under the age of 18, or they have perhaps an illness, like they're disabled, that you can't take advantage of them, basically, right? And you need to get an exception approved for that. Okay, who's going to do that? Who's qualified to do that? And just the entire premise, like this bill is literally discussing which people in society are okay to exploit by the fucking government. We should not be having this conversation. What is this shit? What is this shit? This is a police state, literally. I mean, look, let's not kid ourselves. Is this anything new? No. They've been getting away with murder the entire time. And the reason people nicknamed this the Spy Cops bill is because Spy Cops was an entire scandal where you had women that had been tricked into relationships by undercover agents, right? And they did a whole inquiry about it. And, of course, no one is really held accountable. So they've been getting away with this the entire time. They're just trying to legalize it now. They're just trying to put it into the books, which should concern everyone. And I mean, it's disgusting, right? It's absolutely disgusting. They're just openly saying they're going to make criminal exemptions. Authorization of criminal conduct. It's just straight up black and white. Like, yeah, we're going to do what the fuck we like. We are going to act like criminals. They're legalizing all crimes for undercover agents. And again, it's interesting if you look at who gets to benefit from this, right? So you'll forgive me. I had this pulled up over here. I think it was with yeah, there we go. So they're talking, this can apply to police forces, intelligence services, armed forces, revenue and customs, the Home Office, other bodies. This includes the Environment Agency, Financial Conduct Authority, Food Standards, the Gambling Commission. I mean, even if you're going to play devil's advocate here about this bill, why are you giving so many departments and so many bodies the right to act like criminals? Isn't that going to increase the risk that someone would abuse this? What is this shit? It's unbelievable. Honestly, it's unbelievable. It's disgusting. And what's terrifying is that most people in Britain don't even know about this, right? So while it's good that people have found out about, the anti-protest bill, or again, the policing, Christ, I'm gonna balls this up again. The policing, sentencing, and crimes bill, right? So while my point is here is that while people found out about the policing crime and sentencing bill and they're protesting against that and they're saying kill the bill, I'm pretty sure most people don't know that the spy cops bill just passed. And you have also the overseas operations bill. Do you remember that one? We covered that as well. It's this piece of legislation over here, right? So this essentially lets British troops commit war crimes. And, it openly says that, the statute of limitation is 5 years. Okay. And then after that, you can't prosecute them for it. It's crazy. And they try to sell this in Parliament by saying, oh, this is to protect our troops. And do you know how they're arguing for this? They're saying that, look, we spent so much money on the inquiries into war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan, and nothing came of it. No one was prosecuted. So their point is that, look, there are so many Iraqis and Afghanis and Afghans that are bringing false charges against British troops, and they're wasting our time and our money, and they're falsely accusing our troops of war crimes. So we need this to protect them. We're going to put a statute of limitation. If the crime is older than 5 years, we're not going to prosecute. We're not going to look into it. What the fuck? Dude, let's get something straight. The United Kingdom's very presence, the moment they set fucking foot on Afghan soil or Iraqi soil, that was a crime of aggression. That was a war of aggression. Okay? And again, my point here is that they've already been getting away with this shit. But now they're just trying to put it, in the books. They're trying to openly legalize what they've been doing already. Because the fact that no one was prosecuted after the the Australian one was the Brereton report, and then in the UK, I completely forgot about the name. But the inquiry that they did, I mean, no one was prosecuted because you covered it up, not because the war crimes didn't take place. I mean, the Afghan boy, Saifullah Gharabyar is his name. This guy watched British troops execute his family. They executed his brothers, uncles. I mean, what do you think? He just made that up? Your failure to prosecute anyone for that, covering that up, does not mean the war crimes didn't take place. That happened in 2011, in February 2011. British SAS, D Squadron. And so, I mean, these motherfuckers, they've been covering up war crimes and then saying like, oh, it's just these brown people that keep lying. So obviously it's all effective. We're not going to look into war crimes. No. Let's just protect our troops. We need to protect our troops. Fuck you, man. So look at what's happening in the UK, right? Look at what's happening. And by no means am I saying the UK was perfect, huh? No, absolutely not. But I think it's just an indication of how brazen they've become. They don't even care to hide it now. They're trying to pass the anti-protest bill. They're trying to pass this overseas operations bill to protect their own troops from war crimes, which they don't even investigate in the first place. And they're trying to pass this covert human intelligence sources bill, the spy cops bill, so that they can just let undercover agents do whatever they like and face no repercussions. I mean, this is frightening, right? This is insane. So yeah, I think people have a right to be fucking outraged. As a matter of fact, I don't think enough people are outraged. I don't think they even understand the full scope of what's going on. I don't think we even know the full scope of what's going on, right? This is very, this runs very deep, but we know enough to be outraged. And I just want to, again, give you a reminder. What is the main reason that the United Kingdom bombed Syria, invaded Syria, has troops in Syria, has been, doing special forces operations there with the SAS for the last decade? And the same goes for the United States. Why are all these countries in Syria? What did they tell you? What did they tell you? Say, oh, the regime is cracking down on protesters. Do you remember that shit? The regime is cracking down on protesters. They were killing and brutalizing innocent protesters. What the fuck is this then? How can you treat a group of women like that after the police murdered one of them, right? You murdered an innocent woman on her way home, and then you brutalize people just holding a vigil, and then you're jailing Julian Assange, doing the bidding of the Americans, and then you're arresting. You remember even Eric? They arrested Eric, the really cool guy with the kufia, who was also Team Assange. I mean, and then you look at how protesters were treated in the U.S., right? Do you remember that old man? The cops, where was that, in Buffalo, I think, Buffalo Springs? They just pushed him over and cracked his fucking skull and left him on the ground. Have you ever seen someone in Syria do that shit? Dude, the NYPD was running people over with their fucking cars in broad daylight. Did you see anything like that happening in Syria? You know you fucking didn't. And they want to justify wars over that. But the shit they do in broad daylight, that's okay. And now they're passing laws to legalize it too. What the fuck? I mean, talk about hypocrisy. Talk about fucking hypocrisy, man. These are the most authoritarian regimes on the planet. If they really had an issue with authoritarianism, first of all, they wouldn't treat their own citizens like this. You know, you don't see someone like George Floyd. You don't see a black man being strangled to fucking death in the street in Syria, right? By cops. You don't see Syria offering support to Saudi Arabia, which is, I mean, you want to talk about human rights abuses? I think it's just been a year that women can drive now. Like, I think it's just a year. Up until a year ago, they couldn't even drive in that country. Like, they still need a male companion to go out the house. You want to talk about authoritarian, about terrorism? Motherfuckers. They love authoritarianism. They love that shit. Look at what big tech is doing. Look how they're kicking off indie journalists. They love that shit. The UK and the US, they love it. And then they point the finger at other countries and use it as an excuse to invade them. Fuck out of here. So yeah, the UK is turning into an even more, you know, just shameless, just absolutely shameless authoritarian country. And it's just, I'm not surprised. Like, I'm disgusted by it, but I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised at all. And just to put this into context, right? Just to put this into context, Sarah Everard, the woman who was murdered by that man in the Met. So I'm going to pull up her picture again, right? I mean, just to make my point to you, if Sarah, for example, if the guy who killed her was working as an undercover agent and he had tricked her into a relationship, or not even, just working as an undercover agent, he would not be punished for that. He would have gotten away with murder, literally. If that does not scare the shit out of you, I don't know what does. And, you know, it's not just a question of, and again, I'm not making this up. Like, this is a thing that has happened. There are many women who have been tricked into relationships by undercover agents and had their lives completely ruined, right? So this is real. And the thing is, this doesn't stop there, right? They also go after journalists. The whole point, they infiltrate human rights groups. They infiltrate, groups of activists. And if you look at the legislation in the CHIS bill, the Spy Cops bill, they say that this is legal if it's, you know, in the pursuit of protecting Britain's economic interests. What does that mean? Again, with this vague shit, like in the anti-protest bill, they say public nuisance. What's a public nuisance? Define that. And in this case, what does that mean? Britain's economic interests? Like define that shit. You're going to assassinate people now? Because, you know, they made the wrong investment. Expand, elaborate. What does that mean? I mean, if we're being honest, they don't even need to. Just the fact that they're saying we will kill you for fucking with our money is like scary enough. What more do you need? The government is literally telling you, you fuck with our money, we will exploit you. We will, you know, we can get away with killing you. I mean, what more do you need? You think I'm making that up? I've shown this to you before, right? Let's pull it up over here. I've shown this to you before. I wish I was making this up. I'm not. Here's the CHIS bill, right? Look. So a criminal conduct authorization is necessary on grounds falling within this subsection if it is necessary in the interests of national security, which again, I mean, this is completely abstract and absurd. You know, they will invade other countries and commit genocide in the name of national security, right? B, for the purpose of preventing or detecting crime or of preventing disorder. Again, what is disorder? People organizing protests? Being a public nuisance? What does that mean? And then C, in the interests of the economic well-being of the United Kingdom. mean, holy shit. Like that's the trifecta, right? That's the trifecta. Like they've got all of it down, right? There you go. Unbelievable. Unbelievable, frankly. So I don't think enough people in Britain know about this, and they should. They should be outraged about this as well. And yeah, it's just astounding what's going on, really. I'm disgusted, but I'm not surprised.